everyone. This is session 1 for our mini lesson. We're going to get started. If you would like to just follow along, these are usually the notes. At least my class knows that I have my notes with me when I'm trying to teach my mini lesson. I would think that Miss LaFaux does as well. And these are actually the slides that I use to teach those mini lessons. So I put those up on the board because I think it's going to be important for us if we're doing it this way that you can see what I'm talking about. So as we go through, just follow along, and we're going to talk about certain slides. Some of them I'll skip over, and some of them we'll talk about. So here we go, session 1. Have you ever had an experience with a book that sets you in another time and place, where the characters are so brave and sacrifice so much and can endure such danger and loss? Here we'll be talking about our historical fiction, so talking about characters from a different time. Historical fiction can do just this. These stories can happen in war zones, in dust storms, and in wild and wondrous places. These stories let you face threats that you will never encounter in your lifetime. So one thing that I used to love to read when I was in 4th grade was a series called Little House on the Prairie. Now, it was based on the life of Laura Ingalls Wilder. But some of it was fiction, so this would be considered historical fiction. They weren't exact accounts that happened in her life, but it was based on the time when she lived back in the 1800s. And so I just absolutely loved these stories. These were something fun. And I would imagine that there are some books some of you guys have read about historical fiction or that are historical fiction books, just like these. So today we are going to learn what we're going to learn, that at the very start of a story, readers pay particular attention to the mood and the atmosphere of the places in which stories are set. Okay, so you must pay attention to the mood and where the setting of the story takes place. So we're going to be using Rose Blanche as our story that we are going to be starting to talk about. We're going to get into talking about Number of Stars, but let's talk about a little bit further with Rose Blanche. It says, readers realize that the story will almost never say, this shows that trouble is brewing, or this shows a sense of hope. So you must assemble clues to figure out what kind of place this is. You're becoming a detective, and you're looking to find in the story what the author is writing and using those clues to figure out what is happening and what time, what's the setting of this story. And so just like you rev up your minds before reading nonfiction, you should do the same before embarking on historical fiction. Remember, we used to talk about preparing ourselves for nonfiction, getting through those tough spots. It's kind of the same idea with historical fiction, because now you're becoming like a kind of a detective trying to figure out, using the clues in the book that the author has given us to figure out the setting and the mood of the story you're reading. So historical fiction is always set in a time and place unlike your own. So the work of getting ready to read requires you to notice details about the setting. Here is a tip. Trouble will be brewing. All alerts for signs that things are changing are not in a good way. So look for how the author gives you clues at the very start. So be alert to like emotional things, physical settings, things that are happening. So let's take a peek at the book Rose Blanche. This story was about, I just read it, it was a story about a girl who lives in a small town in Germany during World War II. The author, Roberto Innocente, said that he wanted to write a story about a place where something terrible is happening that most people want to ignore. And as I read, remember to ask, I'm going to reread some of these parts, but as I read, remember to ask what clues is the author giving me that suggest what kind of place this is. Notice the details that suggest change or trouble. It says, my name is Rose Blanche. I've read this before, but we're going to read over a couple more parts. I live in a small town in Germany with narrow streets, old fountains, and tall houses with pigeons on the roof. One day, the first truck arrived, and many men left. They were dressed as soldiers. Winter was beginning, and now the trucks follow each other under the school windows. They're full of soldiers we don't know, but they wink at us. The drive tanks that make sparks on the cobblestones. They are so noisy and smell like diesel oil. They hurt my ears, and I have to hold my nose when they pass by. What clues did the author give us that trouble was brewing without something big actually happening? Well, it's becoming a place with a lot of trucks. It's becoming part of the war, and it's slowly happening over time. The author uses those trucks to talk about, and then all of a sudden these soldiers are arriving. It's something different than what has been going on. So let's try it again. I want you to be alert to the clues that the author gives us. Sometimes it seems things haven't really changed. My mother wants me to be careful crossing the street between all the trucks. She says soldiers won't slow down. Lots of times I walk by the river, just looking at it. Branches float along, and sometimes old broken toys. I like the color of the river. It looks like the sky. The trucks are fun to watch. We stand in the doorway as they pass. We don't know where they're going, but we think they're going someplace on the other side of the river. One day, one of them stopped so the soldiers could repair the engine. A little boy jumped from the back of the truck and tried to run away. But the mayor was standing there in the middle of the street. And he grabbed the little boy by the collar and brought him to the truck. And then he smiled at the soldiers without speaking. And they thanked him. The sky was gray. The soldiers climbed back into the truck. Doors banged shut and it pulled away. It happened very fast. So according to the details, what kind of place is this? How does it look and feel? What specific words did the author use to give the mood of the place? Well, let's think about it. Let's go back to it. Rose says that the river is getting dirty and is full of broken toys. The author wants us to know that the place is becoming grim. So it's becoming very not as alive as it used to be. And so some of the things that they're using to say that would be talking about the river being dirty or old broken toys. Think about something else that's showing that this is becoming a different place. That war is getting closer. Some of you are probably thinking soldiers are in the street, and you would be right. Some of you are noticing even the color of the sky. The sky was gray. That was done intentionally to create that image of what the setting is. Okay. So remember, it's important that you're not waiting for anyone to tell you the work you can do as a reader. You know a lot about what's worth paying attention to in a story. And you're going to bring your expertise into the reading. Okay. So today, you're going to be paying close attention to work an author does to establish setting at the start of a book. Okay, you're going to look at a book and reread parts, especially the beginning, using those lenses. Remember, we talked about our lenses, and we're going to focus in on certain things. All right, my friends. I'm going to give you more instructions about where to find your books. After you finish this video, go back to Google Classroom and you will notice what your assignment will be for the independent read. Actually, go into my independent read tab. I think Ms. LaFaux has it all under reading. All right, my friends, I will talk to you soon. Have a good time reading today.